The auditorium shimmered under the golden glow of stage lights, buzzing with applause, laughter, and hopeful chatter. Families in suits and dresses leaned forward, eyes fixed on the podium where names were being read, one by one, each followed by a cheer, a flash of camera, a memory captured forever. This was the culminating moment of 4 years of hard work. The annual Senior Excellence Ceremony at the Los Angeles School for Creative Arts, a prestigious institution known for producing stars and nurturing raw talent. Broadus sat quietly in the 4th row. His long fingers tapped anxiously against his knee. His mother had helped him with his blazer that morning. His younger siblings were in the crowd, whispering excitedly to each other, and his father, the Snoop dog, sat near the back, sunglasses on indoors, head slightly bowed. Though his presence went mostly unannounced, a few students had already whispered and stared. Corde had tried his best to fly under the radar over the years. He didn't want to be Snoop's son. He wanted to be Corde, filmmaker, visual storyteller, community activist. His senior film had moved half his class to tears. His volunteer work organizing free art therapy for underprivileged kids had caught the attention of local journalists. He was one of the most respected quiet forces in the senior class. But when the Visual Arts Excellence Award was announced, his name wasn't called. Then came the Film Recognition Award. Again, not him. Corde didn't move. A strange stillness fell over his shoulders like a wet blanket. Around him, classmates exchanged quick glances. A teacher in the corner lowered her clipboard. Someone in the back snorted softly, not cruelly but confused. The name that was called belonged to a student whose final film had been flagged for plagiarism, though that fact had somehow never reached administration. The same student whose father had recently made a hefty donation to the school's endowment. Corde blinked. He looked down at his hands. They were trembling. The camera phones kept clicking. Cheers erupted as the student strutted across the stage, receiving a handshake and a trophy. The principal smiled. The music played, and Corde sat still. From the back, Snoop Dogg didn't move either. His face didn't change, but his hand closed slowly into a fist. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe for more powerful true stories that reveal the heart behind the headlines. That night, the family drove home in silence. No one knew what to say. Corde didn't cry, he wasn't that kind of boy, but he didn't eat dinner. He went straight to his room, closed the door, and stayed there for hours. No music, no Instagram, just stillness. Snoop sat on the patio with a cigar unlit between his fingers, staring into the dark. He'd seen many things in his life: gang fights, industry betrayals, injustice wrapped in smiles. But nothing stung like watching your child shrink under the weight of someone else's agenda. He didn't post anything, didn't rage online. He waited. Inside his room, Corde stared at his own reflection in the window, wondering what he had done wrong. He thought about his father, how everyone expected him to be a rapper, a performer, loud and magnetic. But Corde had chosen silence, stories, emotion. Was that his mistake? No. He knew it wasn't. Something had been taken from him, and it wasn't just an award. It was dignity. But Corde wasn't the kind to beg for recognition. Still, something inside him cracked open, not in weakness but in quiet resolve. He didn't know it yet, but someone else had felt it too, and that someone wasn't going to let this moment define his son's legacy. The morning after the ceremony, the school's website uploaded the official recap: a night of outstanding student achievement. Photos flooded social media, bright smiles, beaming students, proud parents, but not a single image included Corde. His absence went unnoticed by most, but to those who knew him it was jarring. In a hallway near the art wing, two teachers whispered over coffee. "Did you see the final film rankings?" one asked. "He had the highest peer reviews," the other replied. "I don't understand what happened. It doesn't add up." Meanwhile, in Corde's inbox, messages trickled in. "Man, you were robbed. We all know you deserved it. Politics, bro, don't take it personally." But he did. Not out of ego. He never cared about trophies. It was the silence afterward, the way administrators avoided eye contact in the halls, how the counselor changed the subject when he brought it up, as if his excellence was something inconvenient. He skipped the last 2 days of school. Snoop said nothing to the press, but the walls of his home held the tension. He watched his son withdraw, not dramatically, not with anger, but with a calm that cut deeper, like he was trying to disappear into himself. 2 days after the ceremony, a local entertainment blog published a story titled "Donor's Son Wins Big at LA Arts Ceremony." It praised the innovation and vision of a project that had been stitched together with footage from YouTube. Corde read the headline twice, then closed the tab. He didn't say anything to his dad, he didn't have to. Snoop saw the article too, and he remembered a time, not long ago, when a record executive told him he'd never make it past the West Coast. That his voice was too raw, his look too street, his music too real. He remembered walking away from meetings with nothing but fire in his chest. He looked at Corde, quiet on the couch, headphones on, editing a short film that no one might ever see. That night, Snoop knocked softly on his door. "You got a sec?" Corde looked up, surprised. "Yeah." They sat across from each other, the silence filled only by the hum of the computer. "I saw what happened," Snoop said. "I know you don't want me to make noise, but you need to know, it wasn't you." They just couldn't see past their own reflection. Corde didn't answer right away. Then softly, "I don't want to be pitied." "You ain't getting pity from me," Snoop said. "You're getting legacy." Corde looked at him. "What they gave out that night? That's a trophy. What you carry, that's impact. Real ones know." For the first time in days, Corde allowed himself to exhale. Not in relief, but in recognition. His father understood, not just the pain, but the weight behind it. Across town, whispers started to grow. A few students shared posts about the injustice. An art teacher made a vague tweet about integrity in education. And somewhere in Snoop's mind, an idea began to form, not of revenge, but of restoration. He wouldn't go to the press. He wouldn't drag names through mud, but he would do something bigger. Something that honored not just Corde, but every student who'd ever been told, "You're good, but not our kind of good." Because sometimes the real ceremony doesn't happen under chandeliers and golden lights. Sometimes it happens in the hearts of those who refuse to stay silent. And Snoop Dogg was done being silent. The following weekend, the Broadus house felt unusually quiet. No producers dropping by, no music playing, no smell of barbecue in the backyard. Snoop sat at the kitchen table early Saturday morning, sipping coffee, phone face down. Across from him, Corde entered barefoot, hoodie up, eyes still heavy with sleep. "You sleep all right?" Snoop asked. Corde nodded, then shrugged. "Didn't really." They sat in silence for a moment before Snoop leaned forward. "You ever hear that story about your great-grandpa? The one who taught music in Watts?" Corde shook his head. He didn't have awards, didn't have connections, but he taught music to kids who would have ended up in trouble. Some of them still come up to me at events, say he saved their lives. Corde listened, leaning in. "Sometimes the system ain't broken," Snoop continued. "It's working exactly how they want it to. Our job is to build something better." He paused. "You cool with that?" Corde blinked. "With what?" "With doing our own thing. Different kind of ceremony. Not just for you. For kids who never even got a seat in that auditorium." Corde hesitated. "Like, what, a protest?" Snoop smiled. "Nah. A celebration of real merit, real effort, real soul." That afternoon, Snoop made calls, not to journalists or PR agents, but to community leaders, old friends from Long Beach, former teachers, local artists. He asked them one question. "You ever felt overlooked even when you gave it everything?" The answer every time was yes. By Monday, his idea had form. He would organize an independent recognition event, a space where young artists, especially those from underrepresented communities, could be honored without politics or favoritism. No sponsors, no bureaucrats, just truth. They'd call it the Real Ones Honors. Within days, support poured in. A local community center in Inglewood offered their space. Kendrick Lamar's team sent a quiet donation. A prominent sculptor volunteered to create custom awards, each piece designed uniquely for the honorees. No two alike, just like the kids. Corde helped behind the scenes. He suggested names, reached out to fellow students who'd done amazing work with zero recognition. Some were hesitant. "Are you sure this isn't about revenge?" one girl asked him. "No," Corde replied. "It's about being seen." The buzz started slow, a tweet from a poet, a post from a teacher, but it picked up steam quickly. Soon, social media filled with posts tagged real ones' honors. Even without official promotion, it was clear something important was happening. Meanwhile, the school stayed quiet. Administration didn't comment. Some faculty tried to downplay it. It's sweet but not official. Others secretly encouraged students to attend. As the date approached, Snoop and Corde sat in the empty community hall, sketching out the event's layout on a napkin. "No red carpet," Corde said. "No dress code," Snoop added. "Come as you are." They laughed. But underneath the smiles, there was something unshakable. A feeling of building something bigger than both of them. A moment that wasn't just about a lost award, but about reclaiming dignity for every unheard voice. "You nervous?" Snoop asked as they stood up to leave. "A little," Corde admitted. "But this feels right." Snoop nodded. "Yeah, it does." Outside, the sun dipped below the palm trees, casting long shadows across the pavement. But inside that little community center, a light had begun to glow. Soft, steady, unstoppable. The night of the real one's honors arrived without fanfare. No glossy banners, no corporate sponsors, no red carpet flash. Yet by 6 p.m., the line outside the Inglewood Community Arts Center wrapped around the block. Students in hoodies stood beside women in church hats. Local vendors gave away free plates of food. Someone brought a drumline. It felt less like an awards ceremony and more like a block party with a purpose. Inside, folding chairs were arranged in neat rows. The walls were covered with artwork from youth programs around the city. A makeshift stage stood at the front, lit by string lights. On each chair was a small card that read, "You matter. You are enough. You belong." Corde stood backstage, watching it all unfold. He wasn't used to the spotlight, not this kind. But as people filtered in, he saw familiar faces. His old art teacher from middle school, the neighbor who used to drive him to his first film internships, the boy who used to be homeless but now wrote poetry for open mics downtown. Then, Snoop stepped onto the stage. He didn't carry a script. He didn't need one. "What's up, family?" he said, voice calm but electric. "Tonight ain't about revenge. It ain't about shade. It's about light. The kind that don't get turned on in fancy auditoriums. The kind that lives in the work, in the hustle, in the heart." Applause broke out. Some stood. Others wiped their eyes. "Tonight," he continued, "we honor the real ones." The program flowed like a story. A girl who composed an original symphony using sounds recorded in the city's subways received the first award. A boy who filmed a documentary about life with a deaf sibling was next. A young painter who used old protest signs as canvases. A poet who turned her trauma into hope. And then it was Corde's turn. He stepped onto the stage, heart pounding. The room fell quiet. "I never wanted to be known for my last name," he began. "I wanted to be known for my voice." He paused, scanning the crowd. "A few weeks ago, I felt invisible, not because I lacked effort, but because I didn't fit the mold. I thought maybe I wasn't good enough." He swallowed hard. "But being here tonight, it reminds me that sometimes the mold was never meant for us. We were meant to break it." The applause was thunderous. People stood. A few sobbed openly. Snoop, sitting in the front row, didn't clap. He just looked at his son with eyes full of pride and something deeper. Peace. As Corde stepped down, a group of students presented him with a handcrafted trophy, a sculpture of a camera wrapped in vines, each leaf etched with the names of kids he'd mentored through his art program. But there was more. Snoop took the mic one last time. "Y'all know I talk with my actions, so tonight, we're launching the Broadus Fund for Creative Integrity. It'll support students whose work speaks loud, even when others try to silence it." The crowd erupted. Cameras captured the moment. But more importantly, Hearts carried it forward. By the next morning, clips of Corde's speech had gone viral. Celebrities reposted. Teachers shared it in classrooms. Students from across the country began tagging their own Real Ones moments. The school that once ignored Corde faced growing pressure. Questions were asked, meetings were held. But Corde didn't focus on that. He had work to do. And this time, the world was listening. Weeks passed, but the ripple didn't fade. The Real Ones honors became more than an event. It became a movement. Community centers from Oakland to Atlanta reached out, asking how to replicate the format. Students began nominating each other online, lifting up peers who had once gone unseen. The phrase "Real Ones recognize Real Ones" trended nationwide. At the school where it all began, pressure mounted. Alumni signed an open letter. Parents demanded transparency. Eventually, the administration responded with a brief statement. "We recognize that our awards process may have excluded deserving voices. We are initiating a full review." It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. They launched a new board to oversee artistic recognition, diverse, independent, and community-informed. Students were given a voice in the nomination process. The Visual Arts Department changed its criteria to include community impact and social relevance. And quietly, the name Corde Broadus was spoken with newfound reverence in the halls. But Corde had already moved on. He was accepted into a top-tier arts college on a full scholarship, not just for his portfolio, but for his leadership. Professors mentioned his Real Ones speech during orientation. Freshmen recognized him in the cafeteria. Still, he stayed grounded. He kept creating short films about forgotten neighborhoods, documentaries on youth resilience. He partnered with after-school programs, teaching kids how to tell their stories with just a phone and a voice. In every classroom he entered, he'd say, "Awards don't define you, your truth does." Snoop, for his part, didn't brag. He didn't drop verses about it, but he posted one quiet photo on Instagram, Corde at the Real Ones event, head bowed, holding his handcrafted award. The caption read, "Real awards come from real love." It was reposted by millions, not because it was flashy, but because it was real. The Broadus Fund for Creative Integrity raised over $500,000 in 3 months. It helped dozens of students finish school, pay for equipment, start projects. More importantly, it gave them hope. One girl, a shy painter from South Central, said in a letter, "I thought I'd never be seen. Then someone showed me my story matters." That someone was Corde. The story of his silence at the original ceremony had been rewritten, not through revenge, but through restoration. He hadn't fought the system with noise. He had created a new system where truth could breathe. One evening, months later, Corde and Snoop sat in the same kitchen where it all began. "You did good," Snoop said, passing him a plate. Corde smiled. "We did good." Snoop raised a glass of lemonade. "To the Real Ones." They clinked glasses. Outside, the sun dipped again. Just as it had on that day, they drew plans on napkins. But this time, the shadows didn't linger. They had been replaced by something stronger, a legacy not of fame, but of purpose. Because when the world tries to dim your light, the Real Ones don't fight for the spotlight. They build their own. If this story moved you, subscribe now for more true stories that celebrate courage, truth, and love in unexpected places. And don't miss the next video on screen, another unforgettable journey that will stay with you long after it ends.